This is one of the true hidden benefits of exercise. That it's something we don't even really realize we do or think about. And it's something so obvious that when I tell you, you'll probably think, oh yeah, that's true. So this talk is really aimed at the older adults, but it has relevance to everyone because we're all going to get older. So I'm going to tell you about one of my clients. He's around about 60. And he's lived a pretty tough physical life. That's in terms of the job roles he's had in the past and also the sports he's played in his youth and even into his adult life. As a result of this physical life, when he came to me a few years ago, he had two really bad shoulders, one of them much worse than the other, and about 2 years ago I had to actually have surgery on. He had bad back. He had two bad knees and two bad hips. So when he came to me, he was pretty messed up and he had real limitations in terms of his mobility and his strength. And all of these things brought him, was a pretty strong, macho kind of guy. He came to me in a kind of really beat up, broken kind of way, really a kind of shadow of his former self. When he came to me, he was pretty skeptical, and the only reason he came to me is because he was referred by his boss, who was a similar age and had great results. So he was skeptical, and he was also concerned that just working out, because he'd obviously lived this physical life, and starting exercise again wasn't just going to make things worse. Because, it had a big impact on his life, trouble sleeping, waking up in pain. Good thing is, he's determined because he gave it a go, and he gave it 110%. And we made massive improvements. In his first session, he was having difficulty and in pain when we did a test, just pressing 5 kilo weights on a chest press. Now he's up to 27.5 or 30 kilos. He's made huge progress, partially due to the exercises that we did that took him very far. And then obviously surgical intervention, which was the kind of the last final thing that he really needed to do if he wanted to see a significant improvement. Why am I telling you all this? Why am I giving you this backstory? And what is this hidden benefit? When he first came to me, his main objective, because he was aging, is he said, I want to be able to play with my grandson. I want to be able to get down on the floor, play with his toys, pick him up, and just be a proper granddad who's active and engaged. So this was his driving factor, and this is the hidden benefit that I'm talking about, which is the ability to get up and down off the floor, which is something so many of us take for granted. And it's not until you can't do this, or you can't do it without massive discomfort, that you really kind of appreciate how important it is and how much is going on. So in one of our recent sessions, we were doing triceps, and we had an upper body exercise, a lower body exercise, and a core exercise. And then I also added a mobility exercise to it as well. So it was 4 exercises. So we were doing this thing. It was presses down on the floor. Then he would stand up, and then he would do a leg exercise. Then he would get back down to the floor, and then he would stand back up, and he would do a mobility exercise. And this was the determination he has is he's like a machine. If I say we're going to do this 4 sets, 4 times, there's no kind of messing around. It's like, right, next. So there's no kind of time wasted. We got in, we did the session, he was down, up, down, up, down, up. Now that's just the first sequence. We did a rotation of 4 times on this one. But then we did another sequence, which is very similar. And then we did another sequence, which is very similar. So towards the end of the session, I had a little think, and I've just told him, I reminded him of the conversation we had on our first session about him wanting to be able to play with his grandson. And I said to him, listen, I don't know whether you realize it, but in this session, you've been up and down off the floor at least 50 times. And this is something that you really wanted to focus on. And it wasn't as if he was struggling up and down like when we first started. It was like down, up, right, what's next? Down, up, down, up, down, up. Complete transformation, efficient movement, strength to be able to get up, and the confidence in his body parts to be able to do it, and the endurance to be able to do it repeatedly without basically tiring. So imagine if you're, in your 20s, in your 30s, you're physically fit, you're physically healthy, you're thinking, what, so what, up and down, whatever. But you got to imagine, add another 30 years to your life. Maybe you're in your 60s. Maybe you're 20, 30 kilos overweight. Maybe you've got injuries. Maybe you've got lack of fitness. Maybe you haven't worked out for a long time. Maybe you don't have the physical strength. There's a huge difference in these two different theoretical people. And I'll give you another example. I have another client, former client. He was in his 60s, similar kind of age. And these two characters were night and day. In terms of everything, apart from age, that was generally their only kind of similarity. The other client, he lives for work. He trains 5 days a week, or trained 5 days a week, but his mind isn't in the gym when he's in those sessions. Despite all my best efforts to motivate, to encourage, to tune him in, he sees exercise as something that is just something like brushing your teeth. This is something I do. I don't really give it much thought. It's part of my routine. Now, obviously you could go down the route, well, something is better than nothing, which it definitely is. But in terms of the scope for what you could get in those sessions, there's a big difference. And the main thing that I want to discuss is the difference between the ability to get up and down off the floor. These two are like chalk and cheese. I would say the other client, it takes him maybe 5 to 6 seconds, maybe longer, to go from a prone lying position to a standing position. And I would say that even if you put a gun to his head and say, get up as quick as you can, it would still maybe take 2 to 3 seconds. So it's a huge difference. And they're very similar, but the strength difference is massive. And the other thing is this other client doesn't have any injuries or ailments that would prevent him. It's literally just his muscular tone, conditioning, fitness, and willpower. So think about this from two different perspectives. From a general health perspective and how important it is to be able to get up off the floor, but also from a survival perspective, if you need to get up off the floor to move yourself out of danger in an emergency with speed and with power. I've done 2 videos on this in the past. The first video was about the sit to stand test, which is a test they did a while ago that basically has a direct link between your inability to stand up efficiently and your lifespan. Basically, the test is you start on the floor, you have to stand up. The more points of contact you make on the floor gives you a lower score and a lower life expectancy. The other video I did was how to stand up quickly in an emergency. So I would say just have a look at those videos, search for them, sit to stand test and how to get up off the floor, and give yourself some new ideas and maybe, either save your life or prolong your life.